guys, I'm back again and I'm here to do a kind of different video. I don't really do these kinds of talking videos, but I put out a post asking my subscribers if there are any videos they wanted to see me do. And this was one of the videos. There'll be a series of these videos between now and the end of the year. And this video is my top 5 tips on how to read more books. Now, I want to thank this subscriber, Lisa Wallace. It's Lisa Wallace, 1741. Lisa has been following me for quite a while, and she suggested this. So I really had to think about it because I kind of don't, I just kind of do what I do, and I don't really, think about it too much. But in trying to answer this question, it gave me some ideas to help you read more books. Okay, so I've got my notes here to help me out. So if I'm looking down, you know what I'm doing. Okay, so the first thing I would say is to choose a good book. Now, choosing a good book, there's many ways of going about it. Of course, the easiest way is to grab a book that you've always wanted to read, that you've been putting off, and just grab that one and read it. Another way you can do it is to go for a recommendation from someone, either a friend, somebody you follow on social media, maybe something you see in your local library, is go with that recommendation. Because you can be guaranteed if somebody is talking about the book, it's because they really love it for a particular reason. Another thing you can do is you can go for a new release. Because sometimes new releases get us really excited about reading and maybe heading over to your local bookstore and looking on the main table of all the new releases. Or if you follow like Good Morning America Book Club or some of these other book clubs or other TV shows or magazines that talk about new releases, this could be something good to get you on to a good book. Okay, so that's the first part. All right, now, the second part I would say is, what is your best place to read? So your location is the thing that keeps you concentrated. So I, in particular, love to read inside. So particular reading inside at a table with a cup of tea or a glass of water. That's basically how I function. I cannot read lying down in the bed, lying down on the sofa. None of that works for me. I need to be where I'm like really concentrating on what I'm reading. So that's me. But that's one aspect of choosing the right place. Now, you could also choose to read outdoors. I know there's some people who really love reading like in parks. They also love reading in like cafes or in libraries, things like that. So you really need to figure out what works best for you. Some people enjoy reading on the train and can only read on the train because it's the only moment they have to read is on the train on the way to work. So think about those kind of places, to read. And then you also have to think about, do you like to read in silence or can you read with background noise? Or do you like reading with music? So I particularly like silence if I can get it. If there's a little bit of noise in the background, it's okay, but not too much noise. Now, I know some people, they love reading with music, and that doesn't work for me. No, because I get distracted and I'll start snapping my fingers, and then I'm not really concentrating anymore. So that's something else you need to think about when you're thinking about place, indoor, outdoor, local library, cafe, your house, the park, etc., etc. Okay, now, the third thing is the Bookly app. Now, the Bookly app has been something that I have been using since 2020 when we were in the pandemic. That's when I actually decided to invest and start to pay a subscription to Bookly. And I do not regret a thing. Now, the Bookly app, what it does is it allows you to organize your reading, of a book. So in the sense where it keeps track of everything for you. Usually when we're reading and we don't have the Bookly app, if we're not keeping track because we have a personal journal where we write in our, when we start and all that, which even that sometimes people can fall off of the wagon of recording everything in their journal. The Bookly app is just fantastic for that. So what you do is you scan before you read. So you scan the code on the back of your book. You then it will put, the information, the title, the author, the page count. Sometimes you have to correct the page count, but that's very easy to do. And then you will pick the cover on the Bookly app. It'll go online and you can give you the possibility of different covers and you can pick one. So once you've got that book in the Bookly app, then every time you sit down to read, you open that app and it counts the pages. Well, it counts the time that you read in one sitting. So if you sit down and you read for, let's say, 30 minutes to an hour, so you started on page 1, and then at the end of the hour, you stopped on page 50. So all you have to do is go into the Bookly app, stop the app, and then write page 50. And then it keeps that page count in the app. So the next time when you open up, it'll count how long you read during that sitting. And then you will say, oh, I read another 50 pages. And it keeps going like that until you finish the book. Now, the thing about the Bookly app, which is really good, is that it shows you how many sittings it took you to finish reading the book. You can also see how fast you were reading. So it can say, oh, well, she read 100 pages in 1 hour or whatever, or 100 pages in 3 hours or 2 hours. So that also gives you an idea of how fast you're reading. And it kind of motivates you to read more. Now, on the Bookly app, it has something else which I really like, and I use this, which is to encourage you to read every day. Now, this is something that I would do even when I didn't have the Bookly app, is I would try to read a little bit every day. Now, that means I pick up one of the 2 or 3 books that I'm reading, and I read anywhere from, let's say, 30 to 100 pages, depending on the day it is and what I've got going on, because I'm an English teacher. So my weeks look different every week. Some classes are the same days and some are not. So the Bookly app encourages me to read every day. And if you want to read more books, this is the best way to read more, is to read every day. If you read every day during the month, let's take this month of September. If you have the possibility of reading every day in the month, you have the possibility of finishing maybe like 6, 7, 8 books, sometimes even more, depending on what kind of book you're reading and how many pages we're talking about. So I don't particularly find myself to be a quick or fast reader, but I do take the time to read every day. So it's rare that I don't read more than, let's say, I could have days during the month where I don't read, but it's never more than 4 or 5 days. So you're never going to have like 2 weeks I haven't read anything. It's very rare. And if it happens, it's usually during August when I'm on holiday. So this is what I tell people all the time. It's if you read every day, then yeah, you can get more books read for sure. And the Bookly app will help you do that because it tracks it for you and encourages you to go on the app and open it up to read a book. So Bookly. All right. The next point I'm going to go through are audiobooks. Now, audiobooks can be very helpful in encouraging you to read more books. Now, for me personally, I enjoy audio, but I enjoy it most when I'm reading the physical book. I can only just listen to audiobooks when the books are not like hardcore literary fiction. It has to be like something that is, like maybe a romance or something that's lighter. I could just listen to that without having the book. But if I am reading a literary fiction book, I need the book in front of me no matter what. Now, if I have the audio with it, that's just a plus, and that's what we call immersive reading. You're reading the physical copy and you're listening to the audiobook. It just adds to, the whole ambiance of what you're reading. But in general, I know a lot of people who are capable of listening to audiobooks, even literary fiction, while they're doing their cooking, their cleaning, driving to work, or wherever, going to work on the train. I personally cannot do that because I get distracted very easily when I'm not, reading my book. So if I'm just listening to the audio, it just doesn't function very well. I get distracted very easily, and this is the reason why I cannot listen to literary fiction books without the physical copy. But if you're one of those people who can listen to audiobooks that are for literary fiction books, then this is a possibility for you to read more books. Of course, don't forget audiobooks. You can put them on the speed that is convenient for you. It starts, of course, on 1.0 speed, which is normal, which is often a little bit too slow for the average reader. So like you'll see some average readers will put the speed to 1.2 or 1.5. I'm usually either there in 1.2 or 1.5. Usually I put it around 1.5. That usually corresponds to the speed in which I read. But I know people who can put it on 2.0 and a little bit more. And I'm just like, that sounds like Mickey Mouse or some kind of chipmunk, story reading. I can't do that personally. But I know there's some people who can do that. And that allows them to read more books. So if you're in that case, then you will be able to read more books too. Last but not least, I feel like putting your reading on a schedule is also a good way to read more books. So what I usually do is when I start to read a book, I look to see how many pages we're dealing with. So if it's like, say, 300 and something pages, then I know for me, the ideal is for me to sit down 3 different times, or at least 4 or 5 different times to finish this book, with the idea that I'm going to split the book into 4 or 5 or 3 parts for my reading. And so I usually take my book. So I'm going to use Razorblade Tears as an example. Razorblade Tears is 319 pages. So what I'd probably do is say, okay, I'm going to separate this book into 100, 100, and 100 and something. So the first 100 pages is here. So I would put a bookmark here. And then I would go to 200 pages, which is here. Except 200 pages is not at the end of a chapter. And I always have to end at the end of a chapter, not stop in the middle of a chapter. So if I stop at 200, it would be 202 to stop at the end of the chapter. So I would put another mark there, and then the rest would be another section. Now, I've got my 3 sections like this. So I can either choose to read Razorblade Tears in 3 days or in 6 days. 2 days, 2 days, 2 days. My choice. But the main thing is that I know that I can get this book read anywhere between 3 days and 6 days. So the time for me to read 50 pages here one day, 50 pages another day, That means I can still read Razorblade Tears one day. I can read 50 pages from here, and I can read 50 pages from another book. So if you keep doing that throughout, you will definitely have more books read than like 2 or 3 books. So separating your books is, your page, making your page count is a good way to read more books. Now this works especially as well with books that are longer. So like when we start getting into books that are 600, 800 pages, 1,000 and something pages, it's better to separate by the time period that you say you want to read the book. So if I know that I don't want to spend a week on Razorblade Tears, then I'm going to say, look, I want to have this book read in 5 days or in 6 days. I don't want to spend 7, 8, 10 days on Razorblade Tears. And that's what you have to do when you're reading, if you want to read more books, if that is your concern, to read more books. That is a way of being able to do it. And of course, like the first part, when I said pick some books, what you should do is you should already start picking your books the last week of the month for the month that's coming. So that way you kind of get the books that you feel like you're in the mood to read. And in that way you can say, I want to read these 8 books or these 7 books in the next month. So October is 31 days. I want to read in 31 days these 10 books or these 8 books. Now, the thing is, don't get overzealous and put too much pressure on yourself. What you need to do is ease into this idea of trying to read more books. So, for example, if you know that you read mostly, let's say 2 to 3 books a month, that is your average, and you want to read more books, then maybe what you should do is say, okay, next month, let's try to read 5. Don't say, let's try to read 10 or 8 when you know you only read 3. Just be reasonable and say, I'm going to try to read 5 next month and see how you feel reading 5 books in a month. Keeping in mind that the books you choose will also be a factor that you'll have to factor in whether you will actually be able to read those 5 books, because if you pick books that you really like and you pick some you don't really know, or you're picking books that other people want to read that you don't really want to read, then yeah, you're going to have like some DNFs and stuff like that. But I know there's people in the community who refuse to DNF books. That is not me. I will DNF in a minute. If I feel like that book isn't serving me, I will DNF it in a minute. No qualms. So if you're that kind of person who DNFs when it's not working, then you'll never get bogged down in the fact that you're not reading enough books. If you're the kind of person who wants to stick it out, then you might need to be more careful about the books that you say that you want to read in that month. So that's it. That's all the tips that I have. I hope this helps people who are concerned about reading more books. Thank you, Lisa, for this question. You made me think a little bit in depth about something that I don't really think in depth about. I just kind of like do how I'm used to doing. But I did enjoy doing this video, and I would love to hear about you guys below. Do you consider yourselves fast readers? Do you do any of these tips that I have given you? Let's talk about it below. And don't worry, I'll be back very soon with another video. Bye-bye.